Thank you, Dr. Sopergeld. Our last witness today is Mr. Raymond Keating, Chief Economist at the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council. Mr. Keating has expertise on a wide range of issues affecting the entrepreneurial sector of the U.S. economy. He has written 8 books, hundreds of articles, and writes for a Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council and the Center for Regulatory Solutions online publication. Mr. Keating is also an adjunct professor at the Business School of Dowling College. He received his master's in economics from New York University and an MBA in banking and finance from, is it Hofstra University. Mr. Keating, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee for holding this important hearing today. As you mentioned, I'm Chief Economist with the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council, and I noticed Representative Johnson left, but I wanted to thank her for upgrading me to a doctor. I try to get away with that because I have 2 master's degrees, but nobody really lets me, so I have to thank her when I get a chance. I'm going to take a little different tack from my colleagues and look at this issue from the small business perspective and also from the public's point of view of the regulatory process based on a survey that our group did recently. So just a few points that I want to highlight from my written testimony. Number one, just kind of from a small business perspective, the costs of regulation are very real and significant facts of economic life. Economics 101 tells us that we should expect what we should expect from increased regulation: higher costs for businesses and consumers, reduced market exchanges, and expanded political control, resources allocated based on political decisions and influences rather than via competition and consumer sovereignty, and that all winds up in the end diminishing economic growth. Number two, from a small business perspective, the SBA's Office of Advocacy has done a study several times. I think they've done it 3 times. They've updated it a couple of times, just looking at the costs of regulation, the cost of complying with regulation, with an eye towards small business. And those, just to throw out a few of those numbers, when you look at firms with less than 20 employees on a per employee basis, the cost of complying with federal regulations are 42% higher than firms with 20 to 499 employees, and 36% higher than firms with 500 or more employees. On the environmental front, in terms of environmental regulations, those disparities are even much, much higher. So the issue of transparency on the science being used to support regulation is not, an esoteric academic or political point. It has very real consequences in terms of the costs imposed on small businesses. And small business owners really want to know. They need to know what regulations, quite frankly, are legitimate and which ones that they're dealing with may not be so. There's a lot going on at the EPA in terms of greenhouse gas regulations. There's more coming. When you look at the industries that are going to be directly affected and are directly affected, again, the majority of those businesses, the vast majority, are small firms. When you look at manufacturing employer firms with less than 20 workers, that's 76% of those businesses. So they're small businesses. When you look at mining, quarry, oil and gas extraction, 85% of employer firms have less than 20 workers. So this is a very real issue for small businesses across the board. Now, the poll that I wanted to mention, we released it last month. It was a poll of American adults under the Center for Regulatory Solutions, our new organization, our new group, if you will. And it was interesting what the public had to say on both the process and the costs or the effects of regulation. On the process, 3 numbers real quick. 68% said that government regulations on business are created by out-of-touch people who are trying to push a political agenda. 72% said that government regulations are created in a closed, secretive process. 64% that said that government regulation on business was created in a way that does not consider the real-world impact. So that's a public view of the regulatory process. In terms of the effects, 53% agreed that there are too many regulations on business. 61% believe that regulations on business are likely to do more harm to the economy by interfering with the market, preventing businesses from growing and hiring new employees, and increasing prices for consumers. And small business owners would most assuredly agree with those assessments. One other one, there's a whole host, and I will be happy to get you the results of this survey, but 70% of Americans said that regulations mostly hurt the economy. 66% said they mostly hurt entrepreneurs and small businesses. Hurt consumers, 63%, mostly hurt American workers, 66%. You get the idea. The numbers are overwhelming in terms of how the American public views this process. When you look at the economics of regulation, the impact of regulatory costs on small businesses, the views of the public on the regulatory process, really should push government officials to be transparent in all aspects of regulation, including how regulations are created, the scientific basis for regulation, the true costs of regulations. And it matters, you don't want to have a situation where certain agencies or certain political points of view or certain political members are deciding who gets access and who doesn't. So I think when you look at the Secret Science and Reform Act, I think everybody in Congress on both sides of the aisle should be able to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keating. One of the joys of getting to sit in this chair, apparently I get to do the first question.